Well, first of all, let me say thank you for hopping on the show with
Yeah.
me. Before I start there, before I just hop in, like I started this show because I believe that we are all more than what made us. I think that we are not, and I'm a product of that. Like I'm from where I'm from, like I told you, and I think I could have easily been a statistic and could have been the things that everybody said I'm supposed to be, but I knew that I didn't get to choose what I was born with, but I was very much as my decision to uh, take what I had and make lemons out of lemonade is essentially what I know that I had to
Mhm.
do. And I know the things that you share online from your work truly embodies that to me. Because I think, so being from South Central LA and being raised in Inglewood, um, I didn't really know about death the way that I think a lot of people know about death. Like for me,
Mhm.
death was always tied with harm and murder and stuff like that. It
Mhm.
wasn't until I met my wife, her sister had died from cancer. And that was like the first time I kind of realized, like, oh man, like people like die other ways. And then I saw what their process, well, I wasn't there for the process, but I heard the stories of like they watched her sister die
Yeah.
over time. And that really opened up my eyes to how hard that can be. And also, like, my mom had just got cancer last year. So it was
Mm.
the first time that I was faced with somebody close to me can die. And I'm going to watch it slowly over time. My mom had me really young, and everybody in my family's young. So we didn't have lots of illnesses and stuff like that. So I was so unfamiliar with that kind of death. And I think that you do such a good job with making it, I don't even want to say familiar because we're all familiar with death, right? But I think saying that it's normal is something that's really hard for us to understand because of how difficult it is to really understand it. So all I have to say, thank you for what you do, and I'm really excited to speak with you
Thank you. Me too.
because it's helped me tremendously, especially in the last year with what I went through with my mom. So thank you for
Wow.
everything.
Yeah. I'm glad to be here. Happy to meet you. Happy to talk. Yeah. Can't wait.
Thank you. So did you want to start off being a hospice nurse?
No. No, I
So
didn't. It wasn't even
tell me
on
what
my
that was
radar.
like.
It wasn't even on my radar. I didn't even think about it. I mean, I was I mean, I didn't think I was young, but when I went to go back to school for nursing, it was already my second degree. My first degree was in psychology, and I was working at a mental health facility, like running groups and things. And I thought maybe I'll
Mm-hmm.
go back and get my master's in some kind of counseling or therapy. And then, like you're young. Of course, when you're young, I feel like you don't think you're young. Like I probably was 23, but I felt older than that. Which I didn't act older than that. I was like very, I was looking back, like I had no idea what I was doing. But basically, like a friend of mine was like in nursing or
Mm-hmm.
going into nursing. And a couple of things happened at this place I worked where I thought like, wow, I can't believe nurses like know what to do when stuff like this happens. So that's kind of what got me even into thinking about going back to school for nursing. And then
Mm-hmm.
once I did it, it was like, oh my gosh, I love this. I did not know that I loved science. I didn't know I loved biology, pathophysiology, all the stuff you have to take that I think a lot of people are like, ugh. I
Mm-hmm.
was like, I love this. I cannot believe I didn't know I love this. So then I became like ego obsessed with like being the best kind of nurse and like working at the best hospital, which
Mm-hmm.
I did. I literally Googled like number one hospital in the country and only applied there. And it was,
Okay.
at the time, it was Johns Hopkins in Baltimore, Maryland. So
Okay.
I was living in Erie and we have many hospitals and we have the Mayo Clinic and stuff, but I was like, nope, this says it's number one. So I'm going to work there. And then
Mm-hmm.
I thought like being an ICU nurse was like the coolest, the best, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
applied. And I got an ICU job, ICU nursing job. So I moved my whole life, went to work at this one hospital in the ICU. And that was like a really big rude awakening. I mean, I really thought I had arrived. It did feel I felt like proud of myself for like maybe the first time in my life that I like did this thing on my own.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it was really amazing, but I quickly learned like, oof, this is not maybe for me. Like quickly learned. Like
Mm-hmm.
in 6 months in, I was like, what the hell did I do? It was like too fast paced. I wasn't really getting it. I mean, I did. I did eventually get it. It just took longer than I thought. Like 2 years in, which sounds, it kind of sounds like a long time, but 2 years in, I still felt like a new nurse. And
Oh, wow.
I thought I was going to go back to school for anesthesia. Like I had this whole plan in my head. But then like 2 years in, I was like, I still feel like a new nurse. I still feel like I have so much to learn. And I wasn't really liking it. Um, but I felt like I was a little like in too deep, So I still stayed. I still stayed as an ICU nurse for like probably, I didn't stay at that hospital, but I stayed as an ICU nurse probably for like 5 more years, like just really torturing myself. I really didn't like it. So I say all of that to say that like I spent many years being like, what am I doing? Why? I don't like this. This is like killing me. And I didn't like it because it was impersonal, because most people in the ICU you're trying to keep alive, but they're usually sedated, intubated on a bunch of machines. Like, and we didn't really have time to like talk to the family because it was really, really rushed, really, really rushed. And that is what piqued my interest. It was like, I saw people dying around me. I saw us trying to make people not die, even though we all knew as healthcare workers that like they were going to die one way or the other. Like it wasn't like they were.
That was the case most of the time in the ICU. Like you felt like they were
not most of the time. I'd say half. I wouldn't. Not most of the time. But like for example, pancreatic cancer is a usually terminal cancer. Maybe you could, so usually whether you live for 6 months or 5 years, like it's usually terminal. We had patients that would come in to get this procedure called the Whipple procedure, which is something that not everyone with pancreatic cancer can get. But if you can get it, if you do qualify, your survival rate goes up a bunch, 5 to 7 years versus like 6 months. Okay. So we had a lot of patients like that. But the Whipple procedure is a pretty big procedure, and there can be complications and different things can happen, right? So a lot of times we would have patients who would come in for this Whipple procedure that were then supposed to get out of the ICU, right? Go home, recover, start chemo, start radiation, and live for maybe 5 to 7 years, right? If everything works out the way it should. But sometimes it wouldn't, right? So we would have patients that have like tons of complications, end up being in the ICU for 6 months, sedated, intubated, on a bunch of medications that keeps their blood pressure up, which in turn makes their fingers die. They go necrotic because the vessels in their fingers are too small to get blood to them. But it's because we're trying to keep the blood circulating because we're trying to keep this person alive, right? And meanwhile, they still have pancreatic cancer because they were there for the surgery to get you, right? But the surgery didn't help, and it would cause a lot of complications. So not only do they have to get out of the ICU, they have to probably have more surgeries to get their dead toes and fingers removed, then recover from that, then maybe get on chemo and radiation. Like they still had the pancreatic cancer. Do you know what I mean? And there was no talk of that. It was like very like blinders. Like we just need to get them out of the ICU. And I would be thinking, but what about pancreatic cancer?
Yeah.
But what about the recovery from like all the different surgeries they're going to need because they have necrotic toes from the stuff we're doing, which is no one's fault, right? We are just aimed at like keep them alive at all costs. And I was just like, I don't want to do this. I don't like this. There has to be a better way. Like we should be talking about the fact that they're going to die. And if they're going to die, where do they want to be? Do they want to be home? Do they want to be here? Do they want to be doing this if they know the outcome is likely death? Which we never said, right? So I just noticed there's a big gaping hole in our healthcare system that we didn't talk about death and dying. And I thought we were doing people a disservice because to me, death is not the worst possible outcome. Suffering is the worst possible outcome. And they were suffering for months. And their family were suffering for months. So I was like, there has to be a better way. There has to be a better way. And that's what made me open up to like hospice and thinking about what is the better way, in my opinion. Okay, my opinion. But so that's what eventually I took the plunge and just started hospice nursing. But it took a while because it is scary to change. It is scary to leave the thing even though you don't like it. It's like, yeah, but this is what I know, and it's easy, and I understand it now. And so to leave and go to a whole new area that is so different is scary. And I eventually I got into enough pain that I
That's what
changed.
it takes sometimes.
So it
Yeah,
takes some time.
yeah. And now that I heard you explain it, that makes a lot of sense to me because I think that when you get familiar with like death is a part of life, even though it seems like it's a hard thing for us to accept, it's a scary thing because I think there's a lot of things about death that we don't really know. Like death was scary to me because I thought death most of the time meant murder, car accident, something like that. Until I met my wife's family, like I said, and I said, oh well, people can like be in agony for a long time because they're watching this thing slowly happen over time and there's an end date. Everybody knows this. Like I think the brain tumor my sister-in-law had was like it was like a 98% death rate or something like that. So everybody knows. And I think they did all they can to keep her alive, knowing that like in the back of their head, like, well, she's going to die. And now do we get comfortable with this or do we just keep fighting and like kind of still have hope, knowing that there really is no hope left? And then hearing you explain like, yeah, well, we're not talking about this. This person is probably going to die. Like, where can this be talked about or explored in like the right way, if I can say that. And then that moves you over into hospice. And that makes so much sense to me. It's funny. I hear you talking about, like death is better than suffering. And I often had this thought about, when people, and mind you, like this is kind of how my brain works, but when people would like, there's that case of the guy in I think Idaho or Colorado or something like that, that he killed all those people with those kids at the
I was watching that. Yeah.
at the Airbnb. And I saw this post and the woman was like, life without parole isn't enough. And in my head, I'm like, that is the best thing because it's worse for him to die. It's better for him to suffer. You know what I mean? So when I heard you say that, I'm like, yeah, like suffering is harder than death. Like death is like, it's a part of the whole thing.
And it's
like
inevitable. It's
mm-hmm.
inevitable, right? So like we are all going to die. That's the part that I think we think we understand, but we really don't. Because if we really did understand that, I don't think we would do half the stuff we do when it comes to trying to survive. When it comes to like certain, and it's easy for me to say, because I guess I'm not the one with the brain tumor, right? Now, but I think only because I've seen it so many times over and over again, especially as a hospice nurse, people who are willing to truly engage and understand that they are going to die from the disease that they have live better. They live better and they die more peacefully. This idea of like fighting because we're trying to have hope. I think we need to like really we really need to retrain our brains to think of hope differently. What does hope mean to you? Does hope mean living forever? Because that's not possible, right? And there's certain diseases people will get that will be what they die from, unless there's some freak accident or something, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, if you get a disease that we, for some reason, cannot cure at this time in our world, how do you want to live out the rest of your life? And I'm not saying don't ever get any kind of treatment. I just mean, I think we need to start from the beginning. Like if you get diagnosed with something life-limiting or terminal, I think it's like people think it sounds morbid to at that moment start thinking about your own death. People are like, no, they want to not think about their own death. They want to think about how they can live. I think it's all the same thing. It's like,
I agree.
The more you can.
What's going in my head was like, it's almost like your new normal. Like this is like kind of like a part of like what I'm dealing with now. So now let me go on about my life and like this is a part of that I'm bringing with me, which is a really complicated thing to accept, being that like everybody wants how life used to be prior to something happening.
It's so hard.
It's so difficult, and I think that when you put like, I'm not going to be here anymore on, and like, that's the thing that you're dealing with. How can anybody cope with that? Like, what is your experience being in hospice that people can like kind of cope with that reality?
Right. So I think my book is called Nothing to Fear, which is implying that like death is nothing to fear. But I say a caveat in my book that it's not nothing to fear. It's normal to fear. So
Mhm.
this idea that like we just accept death and then everything feels good is not what I mean. I mean, like we need to have this normal realize that we are humans and we're having a normal human experience. I'm even here preaching about how like death is nothing to fear. Let's talk about it. Let's think differently about it. But still, I'm a human. And if I get diagnosed with something terminal tomorrow, I will have a human experience, which means
Mhm.
I'll have fear, I'll have sadness, I'll have anger, I'll have anxiety, all intertwined, right? Different days meaning different things.
Mhm.
And I think that's the part we need to embrace because
Mhm.
the more we embrace it, from my experience, the better it usually goes. Like the people think, I think when we avoid, right? If we think like, I don't want this to happen, I'm going to try to like pretend that it's not or do everything possible to like make it not happen is like when fear can really like
Yeah.
get into you, right? And it's almost
Mhm.
like in the resist. Well, it says what we resist persists, right? So it's like to me there is something about embracing all of it, the good, the bad, the ugly. Embracing the truth sets you free, which sounds so cliche, but I mean it, and I've seen it with my own eyes. Like people who are willing to go, I'm afraid that I'm dying. I'm pissed off that I'm dying. I'm pissed off that this is happening to me. And then someone who's there to witness that just doesn't go, no, don't be afraid, don't be pissed. It's gonna be
Mhm.
okay. We're gonna fight this. I feel like if you say the truth, which is usually me too, I'm pissed too. I'm afraid too. I'm scared. I don't want you to die. What are we gonna do? This is gonna be, right? Like the true feelings. There's something about that that connects the two of you and that makes this moment almost special because it's so real and so true. And those moments, even the sad ones, even the depths of despair ones, I think are what life is all about. Like those true connections. Do you know what I mean?
No, I 100% agree with you. I'm playing through my head like what I was going through with my mom and like
Yeah,
my
tell me what you think.
siblings.
You can also disagree with me. You can all because I would love
No,
to.
and no, if I disagree with you, I like
Yeah.
I'm as straight as it gets. I would 100% disagree with you, but I 100% agree with you on this because when I was going through the thing with my mom, I was like, she can die. And I remember my brother was like, I just thought like nothing can happen to like mom and dad. I thought they were kind of invincible. And I was like, well, I never really thought like that. Like to me, it's like anybody, like everybody's gonna die. And it's unfortunate this is happening. It just is what it is. And then for me, once the cancer started happening, the treatments and stuff, and then we kind of went on with our lives, like her
Mhm.
kids, that's when everybody realized, like, yeah, we gotta keep going. Like she's sick, she's in the hospital. We can help as much as we can, but we have to keep going because our life has to continue. And like at some point, my mom had to realize that. My mom had to realize, like, look, my kids got to keep going. Everybody else, everybody else in the family got to keep going, and I have to keep going, even though this really sucks. So I think that once everybody kind of now we didn't have a family meeting or talk about this specifically, but everybody got it in their own ways, and I think everybody was able to live a better life while accepting the new normal that our mom has cancer. You know what I mean? And like that was like it's a bizarre thing to think about, but if you really really think about it, you do this in every other area of your life. Like you get used to new normals. When the person like I've had people die in my family, and once they die, it's like, well, yeah, like that was sad, but a year later, it's like you have their anniversary and you remember them around the anniversary, but then you keep going because you have to because it's a normal thing. I guess the part that I'm really trying to understand is the people who are watching their loved one die, what do they have to continue to work on during that hard moment of the person slowly passing away?
I think it'll be different for everyone. But generally speaking, I think it's allowing that person to have like their own experience, right? Like the person that they're watching die, allowing that person to have their own experience, showing up in an honest way, in the sense of like if the person's safe to do this with, be honest with how you're feeling, what you're doing, how you want to show up, how much you love them. It's going to be different for everyone. I think it's about. Hold on, let me start over. Like, to me, there are ways to make it easier, right? I'm not just being like, just show up and be honest, right? You're kind of like, okay, what the heck does that mean? What does that mean, right? I do think educating yourself, hence why Hospice Nurse Julie has come up, right? My social media channel, my book and stuff, is because I do think educating yourself about the disease that your person has, about death and dying, educating about like what that really looks like, how your loved one's likely going to behave and act, and the things that are going to happen to their body. I think things like that will help the person who is watching their loved one die. Because so many times I hear from people who say like, my loved one suffered so much, in the last days I watched them die. They changed, they breathed differently, they were suffocated, like all these horrific things, right? That I hear them say. And then I have them explain to me like, what did it look like? What was going on? Why do you think they were suffering? And 9 times out of 10, the person that they loved were just doing the normal things people do at the end of life, but you don't know they're normal because no one's telling you, right? So like the changes in breathing, that's a normal bodily function that's happening biologically. They are not suffocating to death, right? But like if you don't know, all you know is like your love for your loved one, and you're watching them do something so different. And they look different, and like, why is their mouth open? And why do they have a gurgling noise when they're... So there's things that you can do to educate yourself to help you prepare so you can just be there. Because so many times being there feels traumatic, right? And then it's over, and then you have this like trauma of like what it was. But I think if you prepare yourself, I've heard just through my followers who say to me, I knew what to expect. I knew what was going on. And although it was still sad and I'm still devastated and grieving, it's like the moment still felt special. It still felt sacred. I always try to say like trying to make, turning something so scary into something sacred. Because how sacred is it to be with someone that you love so much and be able to hold their hand while they take their last breath? Like, what could be more intimate? Besides watching someone give birth, right? I always think birth and death are kind of hand in hand. So that was a long-winded answer of like, what can they do? It's like, I think educating yourself can really help you, because then it helps take something that's already so awful and you already feel so out of control that you almost feel like you do have a little bit of control, because you kind of know what to expect.
I think that is a great answer, because I watched your video when you kept giving graphic warnings before the video came on. And I'm like prepared to watch this like gorging like thing. And then I watched, I was like, oh, it is. If you really take a step back, it really is peaceful. Like what she's doing is peaceful. It's quiet, and she's taking her last breaths. And then when you think about movies and how movies make death so scary, it makes it so scary. This person has like a nice life, and then they die in the hospital bed and they just pass away. But like the music that's playing under the scene, the shots that they choose, it's just like, it's so scary, you know what I mean? And then it's always around the character that everybody loves the most in the movie. And then the only time I've seen it done really well was in a TV series called This Is Us, when the mother had passed away. They did such a good job because they like went into her mind and like showed her like going to her past relationships with the kids.
I know, I saw that in the train.
Yeah, the train. Yeah. That's my favorite show, by the way. That's the only time I've ever seen it done really well, outside of what you did with that video. Like, hey, everybody calm down. I'm going to show you this video and let me show you how peaceful it actually is. So with that being said, what actually happens when someone is dying physically and emotionally? So that for the people who are listening, who may be going through something like this, they can be educated now and be with that person instead of having to step back, thinking that their person that they love is suffering.
Yes. So I'll start at 6 months, but I'll speed it up, because usually, so the body is built to die. Like we are physically built to die. We're physically, we can give birth. some people can give birth, right? And
Mhm.
the baby can like survive birth, and the body has built-in mechanisms to help us die, just like birth. So the first thing that usually starts happening is our hunger and thirst mechanism in our brain. That the thing that makes us hungry and thirsty, it shuts down. So we don't feel hungry and thirsty. That's why like most people dying don't really eat and
Yeah.
don't really drink. And then the family is constantly like, eat, drink, eat, drink, eat, drink. And the person's like, I'll try, but it's hard because
Mhm.
the body is preparing itself. And the body knows that the drier, the more dehydrated it is, the better it actually feels when you're at the end of life. So
Oh,
dehydration in a
wow.
healthy person is different than dehydration in a dying person. A dying person's body will actually try to make itself dehydrated. The body is trying to do that because it knows it's dying. And if it goes into ketosis, it releases endorphins, it dulls pain, and it makes you feel like euphoric and good. So it's crazy, right? I
Yeah,
love this.
I'm sitting here like, because I'm thinking like, this is why, like I don't know if you follow the UFC. I don't follow them either. Hey, honey, I'm on the hi. My daughter just came to my door. Um, there's a UFC fighter. His name was Ben Askren, and he got like a really bad disease, and he lost a bunch of weight. And I was like, this always kind of be a thing when somebody gets a disease or an illness that's going to kill them. They get really, really, really skinny, but it looks like a dehydration, like bone skinny, not just like straight up whatever else way that you lose weight. So what you're saying now that when you think about all the people that you see who had illnesses and you see how thin they get, and you see that's a natural part of the process, it's just like, it's like, even just knowing that makes me feel better. So sorry, I just had
Same.
to say
I
that. You
mean,
could.
same. That's even as a hospice nurse, I was surprised. Like I didn't know this stuff as an ICU nurse. So,
Mhm,
and I want to make sure I'm specific with this. This is for people who are dying. Okay. So I'm not being
mhm.
like, because we talk about ketosis and stuff when you're like working out. It is the
Yeah,
same thing, but it's different because you're still eating. So
yeah,
this is
yeah,
like for people who are dying. The body is
yeah.
preparing
Mhm,
itself, shuts off the hunger and thirst mechanisms. That's why they're not eating and drinking so much. If you
mhm.
want them to have a natural death and they're purposely like on hospice, never force them to eat or drink. If they want to, great. If they can eat whatever the F they want, they can drink whatever they want, they can smoke, they can do whatever, right? Just allow their body to be the guide because the body knows what's going on, right? So it stops
Mhm.
a hunger and thirst mechanism. It increases sleep. So they want to sleep all the time. Calcium levels go up. So a side effect of calcium levels going up is sleep. So they will sleep all the time. Their body's basically cocooning, like allowing itself to slowly die.
Mhm.
Now, that's going to keep going for like 6 months, let's say, and just more and more and more of it. Um, and then the part that gets the most confusing is the actively dying phase. That is the last phase of life. And that's where most people feel like, oh my God, this was awful. My loved one was not waking up. Their eyes were open, but they weren't making eye contact. They couldn't close their mouth. Their breathing was different. They had like a gurgling noise to their breath. It sounded like they were like choking on their own saliva. And if you don't know what's going on, I don't blame you for being like, this is awful because
Mhm.
it does that your loved one does look different. But all those things are happening because of biological reasons. So the actively dying phase, which is never shown in movies, PS, they always show
Mhm.
someone like giving a big long monologue and then being like, just like
Yeah.
drifting off to sleep.
Mhm.
Like that never happens.
Mhm.
Usually lasts for sometimes like a week, maybe a little less. You'll be fully unconscious, so not waking up at all. Your eyes and mouth may be open because it takes muscles to close your eyes and
Close your
close
eyes.
your
Yeah.
mouth. And all those muscles are relaxed. So your
Mhm.
loved one is relaxed, okay, which is great. Now,
Mhm.
they're not making eye contact with you because they're unconscious. So their eyes may be open, but they're not like looking at you because they're not online anymore. They're unconscious.
Mhm. Mhm.
They have changes in breathing because there are metabolic changes that are happening in your blood chemistry, which makes you breathe different. So they're not breathing because they're trying to get air or their body is just metabolically changing and it's making them breathe different. It's almost like you can truly see that when your consciousness or your soul or whatever you want to call it, right, is not really there, your body is just a body.
Mhm.
right? And it's doing what it needs to do to shut down. So you'll have those changes. Also, one thing that happens is we make saliva in our mouths unconsciously all through our lives, and without even knowing it, our body just does it because it feels good to not have a dry mouth.
Mhm.
And then our body will also unconsciously swallow that saliva all throughout the day, all throughout our lives. At the end of life, that stops happening. Our body's still creating saliva because it's uncomfortable to have a dry mouth, but our brain is a little offline, so it's not having us swallow that little bit of saliva. So sometimes it'll collect in your mouth. And because your mouth is open, you're
Mhm.
breathing, that wet breath goes over that little bit of saliva, and it can create like a gurgling noise.
Mhm.
So a lot of people will say, my loved one drowned on their own fluids. That's not happening. That's not what's happening
Mhm.
most
Mhm.
of the time. I suppose every once in a while there could be something that could be happening that maybe that is what's going on, but 99% of the time it's not that. It's a little bit of saliva that's making a lot of noise, and people don't like that noise.
Mhm.
But again, 99% of the time, your loved one is okay. How do we know they're okay, even though they're unconscious? Because it's like a baby. Babies can't say, I'm hungry, I have a wet diaper, I'm teething, so I'm fussy. They like cry differently. They're restless. They are showing you they need something. And a
Mhm.
dying person will do the same. So they will be restless. They will moan. They will, if you touch them, they'll guard. If they're not doing that, that means that they are relaxed and the natural process is taken over, and they are okay. And to me, learning that was so comforting.
Mhm.
And seeing it over and over again was so comforting. Like, wow, our bodies really take care of us at the end of
Mhm.
life. Our bodies know how to die. And the I show these videos on social media. People send me videos of their loved ones in the actively dying phase. I legally get the sign off to be okay to show it, da 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 da,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
But I get um, the most heat, the most threats from social media outlets like TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. They want to take the videos down because I show them, like you said, I want to show people what real life actively dying looks like so they can prepare themselves. I think it's important.
Mhm.
And it's the one thing that I do that social media platforms are like, nope, you can't show this. This is too graphic. This is too, and I think to myself, this is the problem. It's not too
Yeah.
graphic.
Yeah.
The person, I get it. If the person was suffering, if I was showing suffering, that is graphic. That is hard. But they're not. And this is just what real life death and dying looks like. And the fact that we are so censored to it
Yeah.
is the thing that's perpetuating the issue.
Mhm. It's really bizarre when you think about it because like I think you said it perfectly in the beginning was our bodies are made to die, and the more familiar that you can get with that, the more comfortable and normal that it
Mhm.
actually can get. The fact that like we are unfamiliar with that, and we almost have to censor it it's a disservice to our actual human experience because we're all going to die. It's like we all are so familiar with it, but we're afraid of it. Julie, I truly believe that we're afraid of it because most of the time when death is showed, it's gruesome, it's war, it's violence, and then if it's an illness, we're focused more on the illness rather than like the new normal. You know what I mean? And I'm thinking about like you being in in your work, and I'm sure you come from people from all different kind of backgrounds, right? Like who
Mhm.
have a bunch of different spiritual and religious beliefs and stuff like that. How has that tied into this whole thing with different families? Do you feel like that has helped them with this process, or do you think it makes it more complicated for them?
Having more complicated, like having different beliefs and having different. Say it. Can
Like,
you?
I'm wondering if there's people who have beliefs in God and then somebody's dying and they struggle with that process of death more, or if people who
Yeah.
don't have a belief, they struggle with it more or less.
Yes. I feel like it actually relates more to their personalities. So I haven't seen a big difference in whether you have a religious belief or some kind of faith, what I've seen make a difference is personality types. So I'll get to the faith thing in a second, but people die the way they lived. So if you're like neurotic, if you're like, and now I'm talking to myself here because I know I'm like, okay, if you're like control, if you want to know all the things, if you want to like have everything set up and you want to know exactly how things are going to go, change is hard, you're inflexible, you can't ask for help. Those things are going to be very difficult for you. Like end of life will be very difficult for a person with that personality.
Damn, that is such a good way to think. Sorry, keep going.
Sorry. I say this to myself because I am like that. I don't want to ask for help. I want to live independent. I want to do exactly what I want to do when I want to do it. That is not going to bode well for me at the end of life. And I know this. So I consciously work on that now because I know that someday I'm going to need help. Someday I'm not going to be able to do it on my own. Someday I'm going to need to be flexible and be able to change. And I see, especially, so personality plays a big role. People who are willing to go, I can't live in this house anymore. I want to live here so badly, but I can't physically do it. I need to make a change. People who are willing to do that will bode like their death is better because it makes more sense. They get more help. They have, the things they need, right? So I see personality play more of a role in how someone dies versus like if they have faith or a certain type of religion. Now, I will say faith in anything seems to help you feel more comforted generally. I haven't seen it be like this type of religion seems better or this, just sort of faith in anything. Anyone with any kind of faith, even if it's faith in humanity, faith in other people, faith in just that connection, that want, that need, that belief that there is something out there that's taking care of them, whether it's an actual person or, on the spiritual level. Faith does seem to help.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me because I think, even in my own faith journey, I've come to realize like everybody has their own beliefs based on where they were born. It's that simple. If you have a faith, you believe in that thing. If it keeps you out of trouble, you live a good life. It's all that matters. It's all that really matters. I'm wondering, like, have the things you witnessed ever changed, challenged, or deepened your own beliefs?
I've always had beliefs ever since I've been a little girl. I don't know how you've been, but like, I don't think everyone experiences this, but I've always been a seeker ever since I've been little. Like little girl, like existential questions to my mom, like, what are we all doing here? What's the purpose of this? Like,
Do you have siblings?
Yeah.
Are you the oldest?
I'm the baby.
You're the baby. So it's either the baby or the oldest. Because I think the same way.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Everyone jokes around with me because my parents still call me the baby. Like, I don't even realize it, but like they call me the baby. They go, hey, baby. Or the baby's here, and I'm the baby. And my sister's like, oh my God. They still call you that. I'm like, oh my God. Anyway, no. So my whole point to saying that is I had a whole faith journey too, and it's always evolving. So by the time I got into hospice, I already had like my belief system, not solidified. It's never solidified. I'm always willing to like learn and seek. And the only thing hospice has done for me is basically validate all the things that I feel like I believe. Yeah. So like it's validated a lot of things that I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. I think it's interesting. Like I said earlier, I live and work in Los Angeles, which there are so many different cultures here, so many different faiths here. So I've seen the gamut. And I always think it's so interesting to like learn about what people believe in and how that affects their life. And for the most part, I've seen it be a positive thing. Very rarely. I mean, every once in a while, it does seem to have like a negative impact, but very rarely.
Yeah. I mean, at that point, like I think when it has negative impact, it's like it's hard to like let go of what you thought was
yes
the ideal based on like the I think at that point you're talking about like religion, like really structured religion, and that's like
a fear
yeah.
religion of like stringency and like the strict,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I've seen that affect people negatively. But for the most part, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm learning that through the thing that you share. What do you think? You don't have to share this at all if you don't want to.
Yeah,
What
it's
do
fine.
you think happens when we die based on you being around death a lot?
Yeah. That is what's been solidified for me is like I've always had a belief of what I thought and then like watching it over and over again I'm like, "Oh, this is what I think this is what it is." So I always like to say I don't really know because it's just my belief. And I think it's really
Mhm.
important to clarify that I believe something, but it doesn't mean that I really know, right? I'm only going to
Mhm.
know when I die. But what I think happens is we go to a place that feels more like home than here ever could. Like I can remember since I've been a little girl, like I have like a homesickness for like a place that I can't
Mhm.
fully remember. And I get glimpses of that place when I watch like a baby being born or I watch someone die. When I watch someone take their last breath, it's like I'm like almost there. It's like I can remember. It's like they're so close to that place that I once knew that I'm going to go back to too, and they're going back
Mhm.
now. And I feel like for a moment it feels like like that place is here now. And
Mhm.
I don't know what it will be like, if it's just I don't know what it'll be like, but I feel like it's going to be like, oh, thank God I'm back. Thank God I'm
Mhm.
back. And I don't think it's a place that we need to get into. I think it's a place we've always come from,
Mhm.
that we belong to. That's where we belong. And
Mhm.
I think a lot of suffering comes from not being there,
Mhm.
And I think I try to live a life where like I can stay connected to that place.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, it's really
No.
general. I mean, there's not
Yeah.
it's a
No, I
general.
think no, that's beautiful. I don't think there's a right answer. I just think I wanted to hear your perspective based on being around death and also you're around death and you're obviously familiar with it and
Yeah,
you're comfortable with it because you know that it is a part of life. That's why I wanted to know your perspective because
yeah.
I believe you, or I agree with you. I guess I would say is I think there is this place.
I want to say one thing that I think it's really important. I think everyone goes there. Everyone, always, even
I'm
if you don't,
really happy that you said that because
even
that's
if
what I
you
was kind
don't
of getting
believe in it.
into.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
even if you
yeah,
don't
yeah. Because
believe.
I think that's the human experience, right? Like I
Yeah,
think that like we are these vessels, and again, like you said it, like when you see the body dying, you realize this is the body, like that is the body.
yeah, that's the bottom.
Um, I heard you talk about something. I want you to share this story because I think it's important. Where you talked about, I'm blanking out on the exact story, but it was talking about helping families and you found out during that process that they were like immigrants and that they were like I think illegal immigrants and you talked about like going out to protest but you couldn't protest because you were going to New York and all this stuff. Can you tell that story because I think it's really important. I want to like talk about that because there's people who live their lives in the shadows, let's just say
Yeah,
it that way, because they have to, but they are a part of this process too, and for some reason we look at them differently when
uh,
we shouldn't.
I know exactly. And again, LA has helped me with that. I think this is like a really not complicated, but I could go like on and on and on and on about this, right? The
Hmm.
whole reason why I made that video is because I was surprised when a lot of the things that were happening in LA with the ICE raids, I was on a TikTok live and I said something like, "Oh my God, it's so horrific." And I wasn't in LA at the time when it was happening. And I just felt like disconnected. And I was like thinking about certain family members that I work with that like, you don't know, again, are they illegal? Are they not? We don't totally talk about it, right? But like possibly.
Hmm.
And I was just thinking about all these people that were going to be affected. And I was talking about it on a live. And then all of these followers of mine were like surprised that I was against what was happening. And it
Hmm.
really broke my heart that like somehow I wasn't conveying that like that would upset me. It was just shocking to me how many people were on my live being like, unfollow, I'm going to unfollow you. And I was thinking like,
Yeah.
wait a minute, what? Like,
Hmm.
also, okay. But I felt like I need people to know like where I stand on this.
Hmm.
I kind of felt like maybe I would just exude that, but apparently not.
Hmm.
Anyway, I mean, I live and work in Los Angeles. Like, we have many cultures here, many immigrants,
Hmm.
all types of belief systems, and it's a beautiful thing. And I love that I have learned to experience that because, as you know, earlier we were talking, I come from Erie, Pennsylvania, right? Very white, very Midwest, very. It's a great place, but like, there's not much culture there. Like, I honestly
Yeah.
didn't understand like that Jewish people existed for like many years of my life. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, I just didn't. You don't know what you don't know. Like, if
Yeah. Yeah.
you don't even know that you don't know things. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
thought a fancy restaurant was the Olive Garden.
Mm-hmm.
Again, like, there's nothing bad about that, but like, my world was small.
Mm-hmm.
All my friends were white. All of
Mm-hmm.
us were Christian. All of, there was not like, it was just not there. And then I moved to Baltimore, eye-opening experience, right? Then I moved to LA, even bigger eye-opening experience. And so I'm just so grateful that I've had those moments to expand my world view.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so grateful for that. So I just tell this story of one of my favorite patients. Like, I tell this story all the time. It's in my book. It's one of my
Mm-hmm.
greatest stories ever of this immigrant immigrant family. The husband was dying young. They had young children. The wife and I took care of her husband who was dying, and we used a translator every single time I went there on the phone, a translator. And I'd be there for hours sometimes because he had a complicated disease process and a lot of things going on, and I loved them. Right? I mean, and I don't have to love someone to stay there for a long time. I'm a nurse, but like, I grew to love this family, right? And we would use this translator, and it was like we would forget that the translator was there sometimes because we were so like talking back and forth and like these intimate conversations, and it was like I could understand her just through her eyes, and I felt like she felt the same with me, right? And on the day he died, his parents were there, her parents were there, the children, young children, were in bed with him. He was shirtless, and she had her head on his chest. And they were all just, one parents were like at the top of his head, one parents were at his feet. Everyone was like rubbing him, sweet nothings. Like, they didn't shield us from the children. And I was there when he took his last breath. And all they were doing was just saying, like, I love you in their language, right? And it was I can like weep, cry just thinking about it and wanting to talk about it because it was one of the most
I'm
beautiful
getting
things.
chills listening
I
to
know.
it.
It was one of the most beautiful things I've ever experienced. And it was like love in action. It was such a sad moment, right? He's a young man with young children who are in his bed while he's dying. But it did feel sad, obviously, but it felt like this is what life is all about. Like, look at this love. Look at this love that I get to witness. Again, I could seriously start crying because it was like, I'm so grateful that you allowed me to witness this love.
Mm-hmm.
How beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell that story all the time. And everyone in my comments, right, loves this family, loves this couple, loves that the parents are there, loves that the children is there. And then all of a sudden, all of this ICE stuff is happening and like, get immigrants out, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, I wanted to tell everybody in my comments, hey, guess what? You know, the story that you love, the story that this family that's so much like you, that you can relate to so much. And that's why we're all crying and liking the story. They might have been illegal immigrants in America. Now, I'm only saying might because it is what it is. Maybe they were, maybe they weren't, right?
Mm-hmm.
Either way, don't you relate to them?
Mm-hmm.
Don't you see the beauty there? Don't you feel like they deserve the health care that we were giving them? Don't you think that he deserved a peaceful death? And now that you know maybe he's an illegal immigrant, he doesn't? Like, I just needed to see people like the humanity of it. We're all human. The humanity of death, the humanity of love, the humanity of family. And everyone needs to be treated as such. And what? Because they don't quote unquote belong here? Says who? And it's like that story changed so much all because they were immigrants. You know, like a year ago when I told that story, everyone, no matter what you believed in, right, loved that, no matter what political party you are for, loved that story, loved those people. And all of a sudden now, do they not? And that was my whole point that I was trying to raise with that video is like, does that change anything for you? It shouldn't. It shouldn't. And if it does,
Yes.
you better think about something.
See, I think that's the thing is like, if it does, what is it? And then when I
What is
think
it
about,
and why?
yeah, because when I think about your perspective on, I would just say life in general, like everyday life, and then when you see that people are willing to turn that quickly because an idea of how they should be thinking, I'm sure that just like tears you up inside because you know that like when you were explaining that story of that family, the word that was coming to my mind was like it's completed, like it's complete, like almost like we did it, even though this is sad, but we're all here together to say goodbye and we're putting the bow on this thing, even though it's a terrible thing that's going on. It's a kind of a hard thing to like come to terms with. But I think, yeah, like, because now I'm just sitting here thinking about that story, like, yeah, like, why that just shows that we all are connected by our humanity, but people and things and political parties and belief systems and religion can all make us turn on our humanity
I
and
know.
change our thoughts of
Yeah.
and our connection to one another. And it's so sad because I'm sitting up here like getting chills when you're telling that story. And I'm sure everybody else had the same feeling that I had, but for whatever reason it changed because of something that somebody put into their head. Thank you for sharing that. Like that really, really touched me. I was getting chills um when you were saying it. Like it's one thing reading it in the book, but when hearing you say it, like it's like a whole different level. I know we're wrapping up on time. I don't want to keep you over. But I have one question that I'm like dying to ask. What are some of the most common regrets or reflection people share at the end of their life? Like I have this thing where I really like watching like people who are like 105,
I know.
109. They live like these
Me
really
too.
long lives.
Me too. Oh
Okay.
my God.
And
I
then they
love
get to
centennials, I think they're called, right? Is it a centennial? So people who live into past their 100. Anyway, go ahead. Me too. I love it. I love
and I
it.
love hearing because they'll give like 20 things that they want to tell about their lives and they all have the kind of the same answers. You know, they all kind
Yeah.
of have the same answers, with a little bit is sprinkled a little differently because of, they have different life experiences. So what are some of the most common regrets or reflections people share at the end of their life?
Funny you should say this because you're hearing this first. I may be writing a second book about this.
Oh, nice,
I
nice.
honestly, I don't even know if I'm allowed to say that, but because it's not going to come out it takes a long time. It's not going to come out for a couple of years, but
Mhm.
that is the premise of the book.
Congratulations.
Sorry, publishing company, if I'm not.
I can take it. I can take this out
I
too.
think it's
Like
okay. I
I don't
think
have
it's
to
okay.
keep.
Like the
Okay.
deal has been signed and stuff. So anyway,
Okay.
whatever. But okay, so this is what I'll say about that. I think a lot of people, at least from my perspective, it's not like dying people will sit down and go, these are my regrets, right? That's not been my experience, especially because I'm a hospice nurse, not like a social worker. I'm not really there going, tell me all about your life and what you regret. Like, so it doesn't come out like that. How it comes out is as I'm a nurse, like working with them, over time, they'll say little things that I'll cue into. So the first thing that I feel like many people do not say or talk about, but I think is the biggest thing that I hear the most is people regretting that they didn't appreciate their health when they had it.
Dude, sorry. Go ahead.
So like, that's the biggest thing I take home is that the little things they say like, oh, I wish I appreciated how much like I loved this cheeseburger. It doesn't taste the same now. Like my taste is just off. And I wish I like appreciated how much I like loved food when I could eat food. I love that like so like things like that or like I used to walk around my block every day and I'd walk to this coffee shop and I'd get a coffee and I'd walk home. And like, I just didn't even realize how much I loved doing that. And I wish I could still do it. Like the fact that I can't walk down the stairs now and I definitely can't walk around the block. Like, so appreciating things like that, like that is the thing, the biggest take home. And that I truly do. I mean this with the bottom of my heart. I live this way. I live my life knowing I'm going to die and actually contemplating it on a daily basis just so I can truly in the day that I'm in, appreciate the little things. Like me smelling my coffee and like liking how it smells, and it smells right and it tastes how it's supposed to taste. And I can get up and like walk through the neighborhood to get the salad that I want. Like things that are so easily taken for granted. I truly do practice daily not taking that stuff for granted, because that's the biggest thing that people talk about is like the change you're talking about, the new normal, right? It's good to get in that space where you can be in this new normal, but it's also like appreciating your life as it is right now, because it's good.
Yeah.
It's good. Like the little things are good, like my soft bed, that I can be in my bed. Because at the end of your life, you're usually in a hospital bed. So I can like be in my bed. I have my special little pillow. Like things like that. I have eyes that like can read this book that I love. I am not in pain. I'm not in pain. I don't have to live on medication to not be in pain. So I could go on and on about other regrets, but that's the biggest one I like to preference, because I don't hear many people say it when they're talking about regrets. But that's the biggest thing that I hear is people regretting not appreciating their health.
But you know what's funny is like we actually do hear it more than we think, and this is what being an athlete has taught me is like when I'm hurt in a certain part of my body and I can't use that on the field, it destroyed me. I'm like, I can't run as fast, I can't jump as fast. And when you think about it, when you get sick, whether it's a cold, you really appreciate, I can't smell the breakfast, I can't taste the coffee. So I think that if people can't get to the level of like what you're saying, because I think it's really hard to be like, I'm gonna live my life every day like I'm dying and appreciate everything, unless you have the experience and understand what that really, really means. But I think that if you like, when you're sick, think about, like life was like really good before I was sick. And now when I'm not sick, I want to appreciate life more because I am healthy. You know what I mean? So thank you for sharing it. I think that's like probably the most important thing, because I think that when people, if they're dying or if they're sick, it's those little bitty things that they did before they were sick or ill that they really, really miss. Like they really, really miss that stuff. So thank you for sharing it. I think that something that we all can take and apply to our daily lives, whether we look at it through the lens that you look at it through, or you look at it through the lens of how I looked at it when I was an athlete when I got hurt, or you look at it through the lens of being sick, or even like if you're like if your children are ill, like that is a terrible feeling. Like how life was before my daughter was having a regular cold and I'm like dying inside because she has a cold. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So thank you so much for sharing all that. Like I said, I love what you're doing. It's made me more comfortable. It makes me feel more complete. And I hope that everybody that listened to this feels that as well, because I think that you said it so well at the beginning of the episode where you said, we are designed to die. And does that sound dark? I think that it does if you don't have the education. And I think that you do such a good job with the education. And thank you so much for what you do. And thank you so much for speaking with me today, Julie. Like really, really, really means a lot to me.
Thank you. This was lovely. It was so nice meeting you. And this is my favorite topic, if you couldn't tell. So
everything works out the way it's supposed to. The way it's supposed to. The way it's supposed to. Everything